Look, Carly, look at the pretty red bird. Granny put her hand on my shoulder and bit down with her head next to mine, pointing to one of the low-hanging branches on the pecan tree in her backyard. I was only 3 or 4 at the time. Standing in the sunroom and looking out the sliding glass doors, I followed the direction of her pointed finger to the tree branch. Look at that red bird, Carly. Granny, I responded flatly. It's called a cardinal. No sooner had I learned to talk than I started correcting my family member's speech. I was an overly articulate, pretentious little Shirley Temple of a thing. I practically came out of the womb wanting to do everything for myself, by myself, my own way. For a long time, I didn't think much of the differences I had with Granny, or my parents, or any other adult for that matter. I assumed that disagreements between us were a result of age. I mean, I wanted to eat Dunkaroos for breakfast and name my little brother Ariel after the Little Mermaid. I thought that surely as I grew older, as the gap between child and adult narrowed, we would see eye to eye. But as the years went by, those differences were only brought into sharper focus. Sure, I grew out of the Dunkaroos, but what I grew into bore no traces of family resemblance. I sometimes thought, this must be how Clark Kent felt. Not because I fancy myself a superhero, but because my parents often look at me as though I suddenly appeared on their front porch one morning in a space pod. I spent my childhood following my father's basketball career from one tiny Texas town to the next. Surrounded by a southern drawl on all sides, the chances that I would ever master the English language were very slim. When we eventually settled in Grapevine my 7th grade year, district curriculum required that I study a second language. My choices were either Spanish or Latin, and in the end, my love of Mexican food prevailed. My parents had both studied German in high school. In terms of difficulty, the class was just a tad harder than shop or home ec, but came without the risks of dismemberment or fire. To this day, counting to 5 and singing Silent Night is the full extent of their German knowledge. But languages click with me. It's like my brain was pre-configured to understand and reproduce them. I have this Rain Man-like ability to remember random, useless words in foreign languages from my distant past, like my 8th grade geography teacher, Mr. Beer's name in Afrikaans, Unkumbuti. I took to Spanish like an ugly duckling to water, every lesson revealing hidden depths in a seemingly bottomless ocean of new experience. A few years later, when I took my first job at a barbecue restaurant, I was thrilled to be able to hone my new skills with the kitchen staff. This earned me more than a few indecent proposals and invitations to Mexico from men more than twice my age. I politely responded, in Spanish, that I don't have a bathing suit and my parents won't let me go. It was a loss for social decorum, but a win for reflexive verbs and clothing vocabulary. During high school and college, I began to add more languages to my collection and more stamps to my passport. My parents responded to my every wild idea of traveling the globe, often by myself to remote locations with, as long as you can pay for it, go for it. So I did. I found scholarships to take me everywhere from France to Thailand. My parents may have seen less of the world, but they've seen a good deal more of this life. And every one of these priceless opportunities I was afforded were a direct result of the fact that they raised me to follow my dreams rather than follow the pack. But those experiences began to drive a wedge between me and my family, between the life I had always known and the life I now wanted. Family gatherings and holidays felt stifling at times. It was an unending exercise in the world's easiest game of one of these things is not like the other. Let's see if you can spot which of these bumper stickers doesn't belong. Giga Maggie's, yeah, it's got a Hemi, McCain Palin 08, and NPR, National Public Radio. Did you guess which thing is not like the other? My travels eventually took me to Brazil, where I spent 6 months learning Portuguese and eating nothing but rice and beans. It was there, only weeks after I arrived, that I had the sensation I hadn't felt since that first day in my 7th grade Spanish class. My day had been frustrating to a degree that only bureaucracy can achieve. I was attempting to register with the federal police as a resident alien, navigating complex paperwork with survival Portuguese, only to find out that I had filled out the wrong form and would have the pleasure of repeating the entire process again the next day. I felt frustrated and defeated, helpless to print and sign here correctly. I called Paulo, a local with whom I had become fast friends, but was unable to communicate the day's events because of my limited vocabulary. In the end, what came out was both true and easier to say. I just miss my family, Paulo. A gente é sua família agora, Paulo responded. We are your family now. I felt like I had finally hit my stride, like I had finally found the place where all of my quirks and eccentricities made sense. It was okay to be infatuated with foreign languages because it meant the difference between hungry and fed, between being lost and at least headed in the right direction. It was okay to be curious, to question, to try new things because, after all, I was a stranger there myself. In some ways, I felt like I fit precisely because I wasn't meant to. I was expected to be different. I've been both blessed and cursed by this terminal case of wanderlust. In some ways, physical, tangible ways, I will always feel at home. I can adjust to almost anything. Life without air conditioning in the tropics, shoddy internet access, mosquito nets. But in more important ways, I will never feel completely at home. My life is a daily reminder that it's impossible to be in two places at once. And there are certain habits and thought patterns that will forever prevent me from identifying completely with one or the other. And now, I am standing on the precipice of a one-way ticket to South America. This close to landing my dream job, working for the US Department of State at the American Embassy in Brazil. Piles of paperwork, hours of language tests and interviews, and all that stands between me and an apartment overlooking Copacabana is a security clearance and an ID badge. And it's strange because I'm thrilled. Of course I'm thrilled. I keep imagining all of it, spending my mornings drinking coffee that was grown within walking distance, and spending my nights listening to the sound of waves crashing on the beach and bossa nova wafting from sidewalk cafes. But I can't wrap my mind around it yet. I can't grasp being gone, leaving. Every interaction I have with my family is now peppered with the bittersweet nostalgia of a soldier leaving for war and the hot-headed impatience of a 17-year-old eager to leave the nest. Right now, the only thing that would hurt more than leaving is not leaving. It makes me think of the characteristically politically correct phrase the French have for homeless, sans domicile fixé, without a fixed residence. And I guess that's me. For now, at least, I believe that my lot is to be an expat, to appreciate where I come from as only someone who has left it behind can. My unfixed residence, my impermanent dwelling, is without. Home is within.